Legacy of Justice 001. Superman, Man of Broken Tomorrows. Chapter 2. Relief, Grief, and Confusion. I sat there at our dinner table, my head filled with his smile, his ginger hair, his freckles. I should have used my X-ray vision to scan him. I should have used my hearing to pinpoint his heartbeat, shatter the confusing veil of illusion and reality. I didn't know whether I was going insane, or if somebody was tampering with my life with magic or something, or whether he was really there, watching me, smiling at me. Lois walked in and placed her cup of coffee down. The sound of china tapping the marble counter broke my thought pattern. I looked over to Lois, who was glaring at me. Did I do something? Did John do something? I asked. No, but you have that look on your face, Lois muttered. What look? I asked her. The sexy, brooding look. It usually means you have the weight of the world literally pushing you on your shoulders. Something's bothering you. Sorry, let me rephrase. Something is bothering Superman, Lois told me. She walked over, pulled out a chair and sat down next to me. And last time I checked, we agreed no issue is too big or too small here. We work together. Clark Kent or Superman, Lois sniped. I sighed and nodded at my wife. She was right, as per usual. I thought... Or did I? I don't know, but I think I saw Jimmy last night at the party, I told her. Lois leant forward slightly, placing her elbow on her legs and her hands covering her mouth, her eyes filled with tears and shock. What? I muttered. Lois then stood up and walked away. She came back and placed a piece of paper on the table in front of me. It was a screenshot taken from one of the cameras in the Daily Planet. It was of the party, and it showed Jimmy Olsen stood there in the back of the crowd. I wasn't going crazy, and this was no illusion. Sandra sent me that. She found it this morning. She is freaked. Sent it to me because she thought I could show it to Superman and he could figure out what's going on. Lois sighed. He might be alive, I stated, but I trailed off. How is this possible, Clark? We were there. You heard his heart stop. I don't know if Lois blurted, but she stopped as soon as John walked in. Hey, I'm gonna head out, John said. Where are you going? I asked. Some of the guys are heading down to the arcade, John explained. I stared at him. Are you trying to tell me if I'm lying by my heartbeat? John asked. I may do, I muttered. John, if you didn't sneak into Metropolis and go drinking underage with all your friends, your father wouldn't have to see if you're lying to us, Lois snapped. Mom, I didn't get drunk. I can't get drunk, John snapped back. Hey, that is not how you talk to your mother, I barked. Sorry. This is, I don't know, just... What can I do to make you trust me? John sighed. He walked over and wrapped his arms around his mother. You can go out, but I want some training done first. Your father has been slacking also. Lois sighed, looking at me. I looked at Lois and she nodded at me, knowing our conversation about Jimmy needed to continue later on. Her nod was her telling me to train my son, be a father, and not lose my mind over this. She, as per usual, was going to go and find out more. Her journalist instinct had kicked in full overdrive. I stood and followed my son out to the barn, and we stood there with the barn door open. Okay, ready when you are, I told him. John nodded at me. He then became a blur and he sped around me, moving as fast as he possibly could. I heard every footstep as he ran, then he ran at me and for a punch. I grabbed his fist, lifted him up and slammed him onto the ground. Ow! John grunted. I pulled him to his feet. You're being predictable, I told him. So are you, John muttered. Excuse me? I asked. So we aren't going to talk about my super suit, or the fact that Mom is worried I have powers now, or the fact that I can do literally everything you can, and I did it quicker than you could, or the fact that you think Uncle Jimmy's alive. John snapped at me. I stood there stunned, looking at him. I mean, he was right, but I was annoyed. But he was right. First off, we told you not to use your superhero on us. It's an invasion of privacy. Second of all, I'm not just scared of you being a hero. You're young and immature. I am not my family. I'm not Martha and Jonathan Kent. I don't want to lose you. And yes, I think Uncle Jimmy's alive. But that's an issue for Superman, not our household, I said sternly. Sorry, John muttered, looking at his shoes. It's okay. I'm sorry too, I told him. We hugged, then both of us clucked our heads to the driveway as we heard a car approaching. You can hear that, right? John asked. Of course I can, and that is not your mother coming back, I replied. We both walked out of the barn and saw a limo approaching. It came to a halt and Lex Luthor climbed out of the back. Hello, Clark. John, how are you both? Lex asked with a devilish grin. Mr. President, sir, John said wickedly. I made sure to let John know we don't trust the Luthors, no matter what. Lex, what are you doing here? I asked. Well, Clark, I had to let you know of something. A mutual enemy has arisen, and we must get Superman on this. You know, the man I can't locate, but your wife can. Lex sniped. Yeah, she's kind of busy right now, I sneered. See, last time I checked, it's impossible for people to come back from the dead, Lex barked. He walked over to me and pulled out a piece of paper from his pocket and shoved it into my chest. I grabbed it and examined it. It was another screenshot taken from the street camera right outside of the Daily Planet. And there he was, Jimmy Olsen, walking into the building. The timestamp was a few minutes before Superman entered the building. Okay, Lex, I will make sure this gets to Superman, I told him. Lex sighed. Let's make sure it does, because me and him, we had a deal, and right now, he's slacking. Lex snapped at me. Lex then walked back and climbed into his limo, and the limo took off. Me and John watched it disappear into the distance. Sometimes I wish I just told Lex the truth. He had always admired Lois, and we always had this mutual understanding of one another. Even on top of the fact that he hated Superman, and on top of the fact that I had written several articles slandering him for being a major supervillain for several years. Wasn't until his cancer, then his recovery, then he changed his ways to some degree. Anyway, he still did the odd out of the league thing. There was Cadmus Labs, for example. If I had just told him who I was, maybe it would have saved a lot of time, effort, war, anger, hatred, energy, and maybe, just maybe, we could have been friends. Dad, now what? John asked. Now you start practicing your heat vision on those cans we kept. I gotta make a quick phone call, I told him. John sighed and nodded. He then dragged his feet back into the barn as I took a few steps away and pulled out my phone. I pressed my thumb against the screen and my screen went dark and the Superman logo appeared. Then it started ringing and I held the phone to my ear and Bruce Wayne, also known as Batman, my fellow Justice League member, answered the phone. Hello, Clark, what's going on? He asked. Hey, Bruce, I need you to do something for me. I could do it, but I trailed off. But right now it's not a job for Superman? Bruce asked. Yeah, something like that, I replied. What can I do for you, Clark? Bruce asked me. I need you to run facial recognition on someone. Jimmy Olsen, I told him. 1 moment, Bruce replied. Within a few moments, he got back to me. Okay, I got something. He was last spotted on a rooftop of the plaza in Metropolis, at the cafe, Bruce stated. Thanks, I muttered. Clark, we both know Jimmy died. What is going on? Bruce said more sternly. I don't know yet, Bruce. If I need the League, I'll signal you, I told him. Yes, you better, Bruce replied, then he hung up. I walked up into the barn to see John blasting a can with his heat vision. I told him he could go see his friends, then I bolted off as fast as I could. I flew across to Metropolis and stopped on the roof of the plaza. I sat there at his table. His cup of coffee shimmered slightly as I came to a halt. I sat across from him. He sat there and picked up his cup and took a sip. Hey, Clark, it's been a while, Jimmy said with a grin. I sat there in complete shock. A mixture of relief, grief, and confusion.
What you have just listened to is a product created by the Three Ranger Bros Studio.
Hosted by three cosplaying fathers who
happen to be massive geeks of all sorts of fandoms.
They are Mark, the Red Cornish Ranger,
Cosplay Dude 637,
and Ty Tiger.
The studio covers different types of YouTube videos, TikToks, podcasts, and live streams.
If you wish to find out who cosplays who, the YouTube channel, the TikTok accounts, and the podcasts, and all of the other social media platforms,
please go to the 3rangerbrostudios.com.